Shrimp are a delicious treat, great bait for other fish, and can be found in a variety of locations, and caught in a variety of ways. All that variety certainly makes them a great fish. However, it's important to remember that most states have specific regulations regarding shrimp fishing, from what kind of gear is allowed to use with or without a permit to how many shrimp you're ultimately allowed to keep. Common shrimp types and where to find them. There are hundreds of shrimp varieties around the world, but here are the three most common in coastal areas of the southern United States. Brown shrimp, reddish-brown in color, these shrimp typically prefer shallow, muddy waters and migrate to deeper waters as they grow. White shrimp, these light gray shrimp prefer warm, shallow, muddy waters. Pink shrimp, named for the color of their flesh, these shrimp live in muddy estuaries during the winter and migrate to deeper waters during the summer. Where and when you can catch shrimp may depend on your state's shrimping season and licensing requirements. But in general, spring and summer tend to be the most popular times. During the day, shrimp swim deep underwater, but they will surface near the surface after dark. How to catch shrimp. The method you use to catch shrimp will vary depending on your location, time of year, and time of day. Here are some common methods, but be sure to check your state-specific shrimping regulations. Nets. There are two main types of nets that can be used to catch shrimp: cast nets and scoop nets. A cast net is a large, weighted net that is thrown out onto the surface of the water and sinks to the bottom, trapping the shrimp underneath. This can be done from a boat, dock, or even while wading in shallow water. A dip net is exactly what it sounds like, a small handheld net dipped into water to catch shrimp. It's best done at night, with a light to help you spot the shrimp's reflective eyes. Traps. Special shrimp traps can be left in the water, sometimes overnight. The shrimp swim into the trap but can't escape. Shrimp bait, South Carolina only. A South Carolina specialty is the annual shrimp baiting event, in which participants set up a series of stakes, drop bait between their stakes, and then toss a net at the shrimp that approach the bait. Participants must have a specific shrimp baiting license and adhere to strict regulations, including that they can't sell the shrimp. What to do with your catch? Once you catch shrimp, you have a few options for how to dispose of them. Using shrimp as bait. Shrimp make great live bait, as most saltwater fish eat shrimp as part of their natural diet. While you can also fish with fresh or frozen shrimp, live shrimp will give off the best fish, attracting scent and movement in the water. Cooking shrimp. Of course, fish aren't the only ones who enjoy eating shrimp. Just as there are many types of shrimp, there are countless ways to cook and eat them. Try some of these ideas to get you started. There are many different types of tools and methods for catching shrimp. Each requires some experience and skill. Practice makes perfect. Needless to say, you can't always go out and catch a new species and fill your cooler. The first time I targeted red grouper around the inshore waters near Surf City, North Carolina, it took me 9 frustrating, fishless days before I figured it out. Now, I can be sure that I can catch a few dinners every time I go fishing. Shrimp fishing is no exception. Get familiar with some of the shrimping tools in this section and you'll increase your chances of getting a bigger harvest. Commercial shrimp boats. While commercial shrimping can produce a bumper crop, it's a learned craft and not an activity for tourists or recreational anglers. These anglers are very experienced in a physically demanding and often dangerous job. While this is not an activity for recreational fishermen, I have included a video released by the Southern Shrimp Alliance that is both informative and entertaining. Cast nets. Cast nets are circular nets with weight distributed around the perimeter. They are designed to be thrown and retrieved multiple times and are very effective at catching fish, shrimp, or bait. The net is thrown by hand so that it spreads out in the air before falling into the water and sinking to the target species. Cast nets are typically made from nylon or rope and common sizes range from 4 to 12 feet in diameter, although cast nets can be purchased in sizes of 20 feet or larger. A rope is attached to the net at one end and tied to your wrist at the other end. The mesh size of the net is usually between 3/8 and 3/4 of an inch. Your target species, as well as the regulations of your area, will help you determine what mesh size is best. Cast nets can be thrown from boats, piers and docks, from shore or while wading in the water. Advice on choosing a cast net. One of the main questions I get asked is, what size net is best to throw? There are many factors that determine this answer: the strength of the caster, the target species, the depth of the water, the skill of the caster, etc. My best answer is, the size you can throw best. There is no need to kill yourself by throwing a big net if all you can throw are bananas. Practice at home on a chair, boat or picnic table and your experience on the water will be more effective. Watch this video on how to cast a crawfish net. Seine netting. One of my fondest memories as a child was the weeks I spent vacationing with my family in Garden City, SC. My grandfather was an avid outdoorsman and had many cousins and uncles who were always into wildlife adventures. Seine netting is an old, traditional method that was not used as much when I was a kid in the early 1980s. A seine net consists of a piece of mesh netting that is rimmed at each end with a 6 to 8 foot long wooden or fiberglass pole. The mesh between the poles is usually 6 feet high with small floats along the top line and weights along the bottom line to hold it tight to the bottom of the creek or ocean. Seine net nets vary in size, but the average is about 6 feet high and 30 feet long. These nets are pulled through low-tide creeks or near shore with one person at each end pole. Check out this Send net video from YouTube. Dip netting. Dip netting is very similar to a regular fishing net. However, it usually has a smaller mesh size and may be equipped with a long pole or handle. Dip nets can be used from boats, under blocks and bridges, or even when the angler wades through shallow water. Dip nets are used to catch shrimp that are visible as they drift in the upper water column. Often, green lights are used at night to attract shrimp and aid visibility. This is a very popular tool for shrimping in Florida off bridges and retaining walls in all seasons, including winter. Check out the following dip net video. Shrimp traps or shrimp pots. These names are often used interchangeably, such as shrimp and crayfish. There are some slight variations in appearance and design, but for this article we will refer to them as shrimp traps. The best way to describe a shrimp trap is as a miniature version of a crab trap. Typically, the traps are square or rectangular with multiple entrances where shrimp enter but do not exit. There is an area for bait. We will discuss our top baits for shrimp traps later in this article. The wire mesh is much smaller than a crab trap, so the shrimp cannot escape. A lead wire is attached to the top of the shrimp trap and can be secured to a buoy, dock, bridge, or the side of your boat. Make sure you check your local regulations regarding the appropriate permits for using a shrimp trap. It is also important that your trap is marked with a specific identification tag that links the shrimp trap to you. Check out this great overview of a common type of shrimp trap. Let's talk about location and conditions. When do they bite? What do you catch them with? What are the weather conditions like? Is there wind? Is the water clear or a little cloudy? Have you noticed the water temperature? What depth do you catch the most shrimp at? Are there any other boats around you that are having success? There are many rules of shrimping besides the endless list when it comes to conditions. Okay, if there were only 5 answers to each of these questions, and there are many more, and these were the only variables anglers faced with every time they hit the water, and we know there are countless others, we would have a 1 in 9,765,625 chance of having a successful fishing trip. Good luck, right? The appeal of this scenario for me and most other anglers is that fishing is a constant battle between weather conditions, water specifications, fish appetites, and the angler's ability to tackle the problem at hand so that each trip is a successful one regardless of the plot. However, for the purposes of this article, I will discuss what we consider to be the most optimal conditions when fishing for shrimp in coastal waters along the southeastern Gulf coasts. Where? Your local seafood market. Just kidding. Shrimp are migratory but spend a lot of time during certain months of the year along the coast and most estuary systems. They are easily found in small inlets and larger bays feeding on shallow flats. Most of these areas are relatively shallow, allowing you to catch shrimp with a trawl, seine, or any of the previously mentioned tools. A good place to start is to experiment with trawling in a variety of small tidal creeks until you find the areas with the best concentrations. Then you will need to refine your skills to maximize your catch. Another factor to consider when deciding where to go is to pay attention to the water conditions. By conditions, we mean water clarity or salinity. Pink shrimp prefer clear water, brown shrimp prefer deeper water with more color, and white shrimp prefer shallower water and are more tolerant of lower salinities than their relatives. Regardless of the type of shrimp, they all have preferred water conditions that will greatly assist the angler in removing large amounts of unproductive water. What time? When considering the best time to go shrimping, it is important to check your local tide forecast. A useful general rule of thumb with tidal waters is, when there is less water, there are fewer places for fish to hide. In other words, the hours before and after low tide are best for recreational hand crawling, as the shrimp tend to be more concentrated. Call your local bait and tackle shop or check the paper for the current tide schedule in your area. Plan your outing around low tide so you can focus on intertidal areas. Often shrimping at night or during a full moon will be more effective. Take extra precautions when planning a night trip. Even areas you consider familiar can seem very hazy at night. It is often difficult to navigate at night, and even familiar areas can be quite disorienting, especially when shrimping from a boat. I have lost more than one acquaintance in boating accidents, including my great-grandfather. Always respect the dangers of the water and know your limits. Happy shrimping, but be safe on the water. Mother Nature. What does Mother Nature have to do with this? Everything. As discussed, tides and daylight can play a big role in the success of shrimping. Mother Nature controls the wind, currents, rainfall, and temperature. Shrimp are less affected by these variables than humans, but for success and safety, it is crucial to carefully consider weather conditions and forecasts when planning a trip. Water is dangerous enough when conditions are perfect. Ideally, we want to plan a shrimping trip that balances water clarity, tides, and weather conditions so we can focus on what is most important, catching shrimp in optimal conditions while always keeping safety in mind. It is important to note that shrimp are sensitive to light. They are often found in shallower water than usual on cloudy days. There are also many different types of shrimp. Shrimping techniques. We have briefly discussed some of the most common tools used for catching shrimp. Now let us discuss some of the different techniques that use these tools. Shrimping with a net. Shrimping has been popular in South Carolina for many years. In fact, it is so popular in South Carolina that regulations were put in place in the early 1980s to manage the number of recreational fishermen allowed and the amount of catch that could be caught. At one point in the early 1990s, there were over 18,000 shrimping licenses issued in South Carolina. As with any type of fishing, shrimping with a bladder can lead to tough days when you don't catch as much as you hoped. However, using bait combined with a spider web yields great catches of shrimp that will fill your belly and quickly fill your freezer. The 60-day shrimping season in South Carolina begins the last Friday afternoon before or on September 15th. The SCNDR may change this start date, so always check your shrimping regulations. You can purchase your license online or by calling 866-714-3611. In-state residents pay $25